He's trying to get in. Okay, we are live. Just real quick, one of the items that was on CED for this evening, the 3 cars that are being donated. I just wanted to move, after discussing with the mayor, move that to planning because it seemed to fit a little bit better there. That was the only thing. So with that, I'll turn it over, Amy.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Good evening. It is 5:30. I'm going to call to order public health and safety. Tonight's pretty easy. We do have just one item on the agenda, kind of piggyback with our last ordinance that we passed to council at our last meeting, accepting the $1,000 donation from Macedon Fire Department. That is a donation that we received for donating some of the gear that we had that was not, able for us to use anymore because of the expiration date that was coming up so soon. Chief Chappell, is there anything that you wanted to add to that? Rob, Matt, any questions? It's like I said, it's the donation for the equipment that we did donate to another municipality. This is their donation in return.
I'm okay with moving it forward. Yeah.
Okay. Take the money, right? Okay. I do, under management updates, I do have a little bit of information from fire. I talked with Chief Chappell and just a little bit of a quick update on what's going on. They turned in on Friday the turnout gear grant that was submitted on Friday. As far as I asked them like where they were like with COVID, if the numbers decreased on their calls, just to kind of see how the fire department was doing with the COVID. He said the majority of the calls now that they're seeing, which I thought was interesting, are the repeat calls for COVID. They haven't received a lot of additional calls for COVID. So that was a real positive there, that we're starting to see some of the numbers, decline in our community. He also said that the fire truck is still going well. So it's chugging along. We're still good there. And he said that the roof is still on hold due to weather. It's the quality of the material that they've been waiting on due to COVID. Due to COVID, the material has been on hold. The production of it because of some COVID complications, but the patch that they do have right now is withholding well. There's no leaks right now, and they're waiting to get some of the material and also waiting for it to warm up just a little bit so that they don't all freeze over there in the cold weather right now that we're having. So I just wanted to give everybody an update on some of the things that we've talked about in the past in our committee, and that's about it. Any questions? Mayor, do you have any updates in public health and safety, or either of the chiefs?
Just following up on what you said, I did have a young lady in this afternoon who is trying to put together kind of a plan to encourage people to get the vaccine. She's working with Pastor Sanders in the church that's where the First Christian Church used to be, putting something together, particularly for to encourage the Black community to get the virus. So that's something we'll be working on a little bit in the future.
Good. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else to come before public health and safety, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Is what, 5:35, 5:37, something like close to it.
5:35.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, at 5:36, I'll call the Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting to order. Two items on the agenda this evening, one for consideration, one for discussion. The first one for consideration is to award the paving program, and I'll let Mr. Finney update everybody on the bids.
We open bids tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we will review the bids. Board of Control will meet. And by Monday night, we will have a contractor and a price tag to go along with the Board of Control's recommendation. So this ordinance is authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with the best low bidder as determined from the Board of Control.
And we'll know who that contractor is next week.
Well, we open bids tomorrow. By Thursday or Friday, the Board of Control will meet. More than likely, it'll be Thursday since Brian's in the office. If everything goes our way and we can choose a contractor that we believe is the best fit, then Monday night, we will have that written in the ordinance and the contract documents in place.
All right. Any questions from anyone?
Who composes the Board of Control? Who's on it?
Mayor, Service Director, Finance Director.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move that item forward. Next item up for discussion. We've already had a little bit of discussion in regard to this, but the consideration of adding traffic calming to our roadways, whether it be speed humps, speed bumps, paint markings, whatever it be. But I will turn this discussion over to Andrew.
Well, and Mr. Finney, I don't know if there's anything you could fill in. I know there was some discussion about the Highland and AMATs possibly getting involved. Has that happened, or is that for a traffic study there?
It has not happened yet. Pat and I conducted our own speed study, you could call it, utilizing the speed trailer that the police department has. So basically we sat at an intersection and we watched the speed trailer flash the highest speed, which was eastbound traffic on Highland. We did this 3 half-hour segments. It was Wednesday morning, Wednesday at the end of lunch, and then the next morning. And then the speed trailer was taken away. I assume they had to charge the batteries or something like that. But the average speed that Pat and I saw was 28 and a half and 29 miles per hour for those 3 days.
So I think that for me,
I had asked AMATs.
Go ahead.
I believe a better representation would be actually a radar gun. AMATS has devices that can inconspicuously record speeds, and they can do it in both directions for a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day period. And I believe that would be more conducive evidence of what's taken place than what Pat and I did.
I'm sure as soon as people saw that speed trailer or this flashing sign, they're like, slamming on the brakes. So that's probably difficult to get a good reading that way.
I mean, the other thing is the average speeder is going above the speed limit. So there's that. Did you record, I mean, do you recall what was the highest speed? I mean, those are averages. So obviously people were going faster.
I believe we saw 40. Him and I both saw about 40 miles an hour, and they were both construction pickup trucks with, labeled construction pickup truck. The thing with the speed in the morning, and, I made notes, and I've done traffic studies for years. I've counted cars in the past and documented, so it's not unfamiliar for me to do this. But you're also looking at the driver and trying to age the driver for that time segment and speed. And then one morning I noticed, majority of the drivers were seniors, which is conducive to 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. You assume majority of the younger folks are at work. And so, but with that, what we didn't get was the evening traffic. I would expect that the evening traffic is probably a little faster. The after dinner and then even Friday nights, that sort of thing. That's where the radar units, recordable units would come in. And I would definitely believe we're going to see different results, probably a different average speed. I found myself driving down Highland today, not paying too much attention. I looked down at the speedometer and I was definitely going over 30 miles an hour. That was a safe speed. I felt safe. I felt secure. I wasn't paying attention. It was what I consider a reasonable speed, which is pretty standard for Highland Avenue. And I would challenge every one of you to drive down the road feeling safe, not looking at the speedometer, and then look down and see where you're at. I would almost guarantee every one of you is going over the speed limit, be it 26 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour.
I
I
did
will
it
tell you
today,
what I
Bob.
believe the speed limit should be on that road. Good. What'd you come up with? Will you admit it?
Who, me? Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
there's such a large space. There's no stops. It's a wide road, so you're not really concerned about the car in the other lane. So certainly I looked out and I was going over the speed limit.
I find that on Diamond Street too. It feels like you're going slow and actually you're going about 35, which, seems slow, but actually the speed limit's 25.
I think many of the roads where you have long runs, especially even on East Lake Street, I get a lot of complaints in that area with people speeding between the tracks and Diamond. So that's a pretty good length of road with no stops. So,
Just
Mr.
to,
Finney, do you feel that the AMATS survey is warranted? And would you think we should move forward with that? I think everybody would probably be in somewhat agreement to get different times and possibly a little more accurate data before we, start making decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't cost the city anything to have them do that.
But to be clear, we're not going to really be able to put in, stop signs or lights at this point. And I'm all for studies like this. I think the more information we get, the better. But I'm also willing to go forward and test some of these ideas. I think the one that because I've talked to people in the area, one thing, the speed tables or the speed bumps, I think people don't really like those. But the other measures, people kind of like. So I'd be all for testing some things out even without the study, but with the study, fine. I think that would be a good idea as well.
and that's what I was going to ask Vinny real quick. I guess you answered the question about AMATs. But the other point, do you think, especially looking at your crash data across the city that you sent, and I don't know if the rest of city council was involved or if we could send that to the rest of city council, but over the years, to your point, it looked like, some of it was distracted driving, older drivers that were involved in these crashes. A lot were rear end crashes. So when you're talking about Highland, maybe the issue isn't speed, but just making them more aware again of their surroundings. Would something like paint, bringing in the crosswalk, I understand we can't put a stop sign in some of those areas, but bringing in or highlighting some of those crossing areas a little bit more with something as simple as paint. Do you think that that might help? Or is that something that you think is worthy of trying?
Painting the crosswalks will not slow the cars down. And the reports do not show collisions with pedestrians in the 10 years. So I don't see painting the crosswalks to help. If we had pedestrian issues or near misses being reported, then I would definitely say, sure, we could paint crosswalks. Painting is cheap. If we could paint potholes in the street, which has been done in other communities, that would be a wonderful idea. But you have people going left to center to miss a pothole.
Is it the
There's
Wiley
been all
Coyote
kinds of studies over the years that I've researched. Right, yes. Painting cardboard boxes in the street or boxes so people think, and as they approach, they disappear. But again, then people can go left to center, which is a whole other set of issues at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I being in the track, watching the cars, and yeah, I do believe the speed trailer affected, but the way the speed trailer was positioned, again, the eastbound traffic, the way the speed trailer functions, it flashes real fast, the maximum speed. So the speed trailer was seeing the vehicles before we could even see the vehicles. Pat and I have talked about this. So I knew what to look for when I drove down Highland because I knew the speed trailer was there, but some of the motorists I don't think knew. And when they crested the hill, there's actually a hill between Elm and Clinton. Elm and Clinton, if you're heading eastbound, you start down a hill, now you're probably going to pick up even more speed. That's where the cars hit the maximum speed on top of the hill, saw the speed trailer and slowed down. And some of them didn't slow down at all, they actually sped up. Obviously that was, let's see how fast I could go probably. But so, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure what problem the city council wants to resolve. We know we can't legally put stop signs up because it's not warranted. So we know we can't put traffic signals up because stop signs aren't warranted. And flashing yellow lights, again, I don't see that to be a help. The flashing speed limit sign warnings that you see with the solar panels, those can be pricey. And again, comes back to what problem are we trying to resolve? And how many of these are we going to put up throughout the town when the next neighborhood wants the same thing? Some of you may remember at Jefferson and Riddle, there was residents complaining, and it turned out to be one or two vehicles that were the chronic speeders because there was one accident there. And since that time, there hasn't been another accident. We did not put four-way stop signs up. It was already a two-way stop. So some of these things iron themselves out. And sometimes I believe the residents are looking for something that it's just not feasible. And
Well, I think,
as Christina said, that corridor is a wide corridor. It's a wide open corridor. So unless we start writing traffic tickets, then it's probably where we're going to end up, no matter what warning we give the resident or the motorists.
I do agree with you, Mr. Finney. I can tell you how many times I've been downtown Ravenna and they have the sign right in the middle of Main Street. It says, vehicles yield to pedestrians in crosswalk, and people standing right in the crosswalk, and cars, they don't even think about stopping. So I don't know how much signage and these different things will do. I think, we need to educate the drivers maybe, and I don't know how we can do that.
I think too, in that section of Main Street, they might not know the pedestrian rules, but they're not going to fly 35 miles an hour down Main Street, and they're certainly not going to look down and try and text from their phone. So I think from my perspective, it's exactly what Mr. Finney and what Ms. West just said, that they feel comfortable going over 30 or whatever that speed limit is, as we all do. And I live on the road, so I'm guilty of it as well. It's just a road. that you again, you feel comfortable going a certain speed limit. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert in this, but from my opinion, just making the driver more aware or more uncomfortable with going that speed, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be just paint. But again, finding ways to make the the road look narrow or feel narrow. I don't know what it is, but I think. Oh, go ahead. Somebody's.
Yeah.
Well, in traffic engineering, one of the big items that's been popular is traffic calming, and that is in essence narrowing roads, bringing the curbs in, having wider tree lawns, so then people do feel confined and slow down. Planting tree islands or boulevards, again, you're narrowing the road down. That's very effective, and actually can make the neighborhood look a lot nicer too.
Would there be room, and not that I'm suggesting this, but I've just been trying to do some research myself, for a bike lane? Because that would narrow the road.
No, well, I mean, there could be. There could be. We'd have to take some of the grass out
Oh, never mind.
and
Forget
widen
that.
the road to put the bike lane in. Right. So
Just trying to figure
we
out
could
some things
paint-
that,
I mean,
So
we could paint chevrons for a bike lane, or the triangle or the diamond shaped things for a bike lane, but it's not going to stop a vehicle from using it. If you want to narrow the road, you have to put curbs in and literally narrow the road.
And that's pricey to put in
So-
curb in.
Well, and I don't know that narrowing the road is going to make that much of a difference. If you look at Diamond Street, it's a very narrow road coming down Diamond Hill. I think the best thing when they changed the speed limit on Diamond from 35 to 25, it was very difficult because for many years it was 35 miles per hour. Growing up in the neighborhood at the top of Diamond Hill, I was one that it was very difficult to ride your brake down that hill and still hit 25 miles per hour. But the police presence,
That's a
running
lot there.
radar on Diamond is any given day of the week, any time. When you come over that hill, their radar gun has you, and you never know when they're going to be there because they have done it so consistently over time. I think the best result to slow down the traffic is to put a heavy police presence. And once people start getting tickets, then they'll slow down.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, Cheryl. Because Diamond Street is notorious for cops. And when I go through there on my way to work late at night, there's usually a cop there.
Yep. And
Coming
there's
home
4
in the
different
morning.
places that they sit.
Yep.
You're not even clear if you pass one spot and they're not there. There's 3 more spots that you have to pass in a
And
very
that's
short distance.
That's where my son got his first warning, is on Diamond Street.
So my perspective on this is a little different. I really appreciate the whole idea of taking a data-driven approach to this, and obviously, data is what we need if we want to put in official devices like stop signs and so forth, and that's what prevents us from doing it. But I just worry because over the time that I've been on council, there have been several, 3 different neighbors approach me about recent accidents in that stretch. And, the common ending of the conversation is, well, what is somebody going to say when a kid gets hit or something like that, something bad happens? And the last accident could have resulted in something like that with a car crossing over and taking out somebody's front porch. And that's not to say that I want to get all dramatic and say we have to respond, but I feel like being in my ward and being on city council, we should try to do something. And we don't know. I don't know that we'd have the capability of studying what the effect is on painting crosswalks. And I don't know what the costs are for those solar panel radar detectors. But I feel an obligation to look into these things and see if they do have an effect. If nothing else, the positive effect could be that the residents along that strip feel like the city's responding to their needs. And if we could do so at a fairly minimal cost, I think that's what we're here to do. So I'm in favor of studies. I'm in favor of getting as much detail and data as possible, but I'm also in favor of doing something, even if it's may not be perceived by the experts as causing any real effect, but doing something along the psychological methods to get people to be more conscious of their driving when they're going through that strip. So I hope we do something.
But I have noticed that police presence, when they have the opportunity to use the radar gun, that has become quite effective. And especially places, as an example, Diamond Street, there aren't as many places where they can sit and use that along Highland. That's limited there. But I have noticed firsthand that their presence does make quite a difference. And I mean, that's the one thing that's prevalent real quick.
I don't want to belabor this point, but the police, they can't be everywhere at once. So I think,
Possible.
Especially if
Well,
there's,
the cost to put a police officer there, if we think about it and look at it, for as much as they'd have to sit there to slow that down, would that equal out to one of those flashing signs with the solar thing? I mean, I guess it's just what resources you want to look at, because there is so many on duty at a time, and if they have an emergency or something they need to deal with, they can't just be sitting on Highland all the time or Diamond all the time. So. Or 88. They've been really big on 88 and 14. Maybe I should know that.
I think right now we can agree that to move forward with the AMAT survey. Mr. Finnick, you'll set that up. And then are there multiple areas that they will survey, or we just pick one? How would that go for right now?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, I just asked them for to look into Highland Avenue.
Okay. East Highland specifically?
Correct, in both directions.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we will we'll wait for those results, and this discussion will continue at another time. So unless anybody else has any other input at this time. Okay, thank you. Do we have a management update?
The only thing I would say that when I was a councilman in the ward there, we ran one of these speed checks on Lawrence, or not, Lafayette, between Clinton and Freedom. People were very excited. Now keep in mind, that's not Highland. Lafayette, it does not get the traffic that Highland gets. But they were convinced that people were speeding all the time. We set that up for the duration of the time that they had, and they caught 2 people going over the speed limit. So I think the study is a good thing. It will tell you how bad your problem is with that. I know Highland is very different from Lafayette and the traffic it gets.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I will adjourn the Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting at 6:01 p.m.
Okay, it's 6:01, and I will call the Planning Committee meeting to order. We have a total of 4 items on the agenda, the 3 listed, and then the one Andrew added about accepting the title of 3 express vans. The first one is Fruit Tree Orchard Grant, and this is yet another grant that Parks and Recs is looking to obtain. The documentation for the grant is in the packet. It's basically to apply for a grant in planting 15 apple or pear trees in the Chestnut Hills Park area. So really the donation is the trees, and then we're responsible for planting and maintaining them. So I don't know if anybody had any questions about that. There's no matching funds or anything like that. It's just trees.
It's a great idea.
Okay, so we're good to move that on.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is zoning map modifications. And in the packet, there was an area just west of Sycamore, south of 59 Main Street. And Bob, maybe you can explain, it looks like moving from Central Business District, and I get confused because the colors, I can't tell the difference between some of the colors, but to just a commercial, is that it, or is it residential? I'm confused. Go ahead and explain that change.
No. Currently, the majority of the property is in the I-1, the industrial one, and we, the city, the mayor, Dennis, and I are going to hear, and service director, we're going to hear a proposal tomorrow with regard to the Mayavitz property, which is the south side of the church. The whole building used to be Horseman Pride, and it's been multiple things, but the building's been vacant for the most part for years. So there is a developer that's interested in purchasing the property and the land, and in discussion with them of zoning and certain things, it came to me that this property is not conducive to an industrial use, being so close to the downtown. And I'm not sure why I finally made this connection. It should have been changed years ago, but it wasn't. So that's what's in front of you now, is to change this building, and there's multiple parcels, to C1, from I1 to C1. And to square off that corner, we felt moving the church property into C1 is also more conducive to the zoning map.
So is a church?
If we didn't change it, go ahead, Rob.
I was just asking, is the church a conditional use within a commercial zone?
Yes. Yes, but it's conditional use for central business.
Okay, yeah, but they've already got must have been
No.
granted many years ago. So they don't have to make any changes.
Correct. My opinion, the difference between Central Business District and C1 is primarily the fact that a business does not have to provide for parking in the Central Business District, but they do have to provide for parking in the C1.
What about noise?
There are other nuances, but primarily, what?
I said, what about noise level?
What's that, Amy?
The noise level between the two, would that change, like what they're allowed to have, as far as noise? Like we had that issue off Lake Street with the noise because of how it was zoned, and it shouldn't have been zoned like that. Well, actually with the houses that were put there. Is this going to, by changing the zone on this, is it going to affect any of the houses that are close to this area?
It's going to improve it.
It will improve it. Okay.
Yes, because you're going from industrial, which could be loud manufacturing,
Right.
a lot of environmental issues, down to commercial.
Okay. All right. I'm just looking at the two differences to make sure we weren't, going to be affecting the neighbors.
No, this will improve it for the neighborhood.
All right, good.
So my concerns were just that, there are existing property owners, and I just want to make sure they're understanding what this change means and whether or not they see it as a negative effect. I believe this does require a public hearing, and of course, that's a little bit of a complication given our current circumstances. But it sounds like this is the fact that some of this land was industrial is just the circumstance of what was there before, but it does seem to me it's more appropriate to be a commercial zone.
Mhm.
But yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, the only issue is making sure we go through the proper process and that the current property owners affected by this zoning change are aware and get, are allowed to have some input into it, which is part of the process.
I did speak to my Fred Mayovitz Jr. about it, and he had no issues with it. He simply wants to sell the property. And if this is what it takes to help him sell the property, then he will. That's fine. But as you said, this could take 3 months. It's a 3-month process. So, we have time to vet this out. I did not approach the church because it won't change the church. It won't change how they utilize it. But I do want to say for council to look at the differences between C1 and Central Business District, the uses specifically, the approved uses and the conditionally approved uses, and they're very similar.
Okay. So since it's going to take a while, we need to push this along. I'm not sure about the public hearing thing. We haven't had any public hearings in quite some time, so I'm not exactly sure how we're going to make that happen.
We've done it over Zoom, so
Yeah.
we'll just have to get the word out.
Yeah. All right. And I believe the code says, we have to have the public hearing, and then within a certain period of time, we can take action. I think it's 60 days or so. So, all right. Any objection to moving this forward?
No.
No.
Okay, well,
Great idea.
that's what we'll do. The next item is fence code modification. So we talked a little bit about this last month, and Bob has some specific changes to our ordinances about fences that's included in your packet. So Bob, why don't you walk us through those changes?
Well, the one item that I added was that barbed wire fence shall not be placed in the Central Business District. Everything else is the same as I submitted to you last month. But I can walk through the bold part that, it's starting in section 1. I was further defining what the front yard is and the fact that the fence shrub hedge shall be no higher than 3 feet. I'm requiring a setback of 2 feet from the property line. One of the items, a lot of the front property pins can't be found. And by code, I could require every homeowner that installs a fence to actually have their property surveyed. And surveyors would charge $500 to $700 to do this, to install a fence that could cost them $2,000. So I don't know where their pins are. We sometimes have looked for them. So an easier requirement would be to set it back 2 feet from where they believe to be the property line. Therefore, we know we're getting it where it should be. I don't, in all the years doing this, I don't see this to be an issue for a resident. Side property lines, we do not have a requirement for setback. I get asked that all the time. Some communities want 12 inches from the property line, 2 feet. I tell them they have to maintain, wherever they put it, they have to maintain it. If it's literally on the property line and the neighbor wants to stack firewood, they're allowed, they have the right to that property line. So sometimes that scares them and they move it off the property line. But again, they still have to be able to maintain it. If the two property owners, if the two owners that share the property line do not get along, then how do you maintain that strip of land or the strip of grass? I don't know. I do get involved because I have to listen to them complain, but
They can be the worst.
so that's kind of why I was saying, let's move it 2 feet. Right. But I also wanted to allow 4 feet tall fences in the front yard, as long as they can be seen through. I never had the white picket fence in the front yard fantasy that some folks did years ago, but there are still some of those folks that like the white picket fence in the front yard. To have a 3-foot fence is not a standard item. So if we went 4 foot and calling out an opening, then it's a decorative fence and it would look decent. Same thing with the chain link fence in the front yard can be 4 foot high because it can be seen through. And then I'm specifying, which is what I've followed since I've done the zoning, is a maximum of 6 foot high fence can be placed from the front corner of the house to the rear, and that corner lots are considered having 2 front yards, which is actually in our code. I called out the next section for maintenance. Shrubs and hedges shall not overhang or block sidewalks. Trees shall be maintained to allow 8 foot of clearance from the sidewalk to the lowest branch. We have a couple areas where there's fruit trees that overhang the sidewalks and the owner doesn't want to cut them when they're bearing fruit. Well, it becomes an issue. So we didn't have anything in the code. Now we'll have something in the code.
Hey, Bob, this excites me because when I used
Visibility
to
and
run,
intersection.
there's so many trees that people didn't trim and you'd whack your head on them. So thank you. I appreciate this.
Well, good. The visibility at intersections, I believe I clarified it a little bit. I didn't understand it, and I asked Mr. Bowen, who was part of the zoning code rewrite years ago, and he told me what he felt it meant. So we clarified it a little bit, so now there's no confusion. And then in the barbed wire section, barbed wire is not permitted in a residentially zoned district or central business district. And where barbed wire shall be slanted inward if it is no more than 3 strands. And then I went on to say barbed wire in a C1, C2, and I1 zoning district that abuts a residentially zoned district is required to receive Board of Zoning Appeals approval to install barbed wire along an abutting property line. The one section I'm just taking out because it does not apply. What's that?
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask, why would barbed wire be allowed any place within the city limits?
It's a security measure.
For safety and security. If council wants to take it out of the code, then take it out of the code. I mean, that's truly up to you guys. That's why we're reviewing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking.
That sounds a little bit extreme. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know how other people feel. I was going to question though that last clause you put in there about the BZA, because I mean that sort of stimulated some of these changes, right? I mean, I think even without it, the way the zoning code's written, any denial of a permit could end up there anyway. So it's somewhat redundant. But here's the question I was going to ask. Maybe we should just prohibit it and not even allow a variance for something like this. I know there's other people on council who are not happy about what happened with the barbed wire fence that is next to a residential area that was approved by the BZA. Now, I'm not, believe me, being on the BZA, the last thing I'm doing is criticizing the work they do, and it can be a challenge to sort out the needs of applicants and the needs of residents in the city. So I get that. But I mean, I'm just curious, given the discussions we had in the past about this one instance with the barbed wire that did get approved, you know, is there some consideration from just outlawing barbed wire that abuts any residential without any option for applying for a variance?
I would be in favor of that.
I mean,
That's
I
just my
think
opinion.
anywhere in the city limits.
Well, there are areas in the city limits that I could understand,
Right.
industrial, commercial areas that would need it for security reasons.
Mhm.
But I do think that anywhere that butts up to a residential area, it just should be prohibited.
Absolutely. No, I feel the exact same way. I mean, if there's a residential area and it abuts to the houses, it should not be permitted. But like I said, for security and a business area, you know, that's understandable. But, you know, I think it can ruin people's property values that have worked hard for their homes. And I think that, you know, we're trying to clean up neighborhoods. And some of these neighborhoods have worked very hard to clean up their neighborhoods and actually, you know, purchase these homes. And I don't think that's fair to them.
No.
Especially when there's not been a lot of, you know, police calls on a particular property.
Yeah. So
I can certainly state that in this ordinance. The barbed wire in the C1, C2, and I1 zoning district that abuts a residentially zoned district is not permitted and is not appealable.
that would be perfect. Does anybody have any
It
objections?
has to be stated that it's not appealable.
Right. I agree. Otherwise, I think then it's open for interpretation, whether or not the Board of Zoning Appeals could hear it.
Right.
It has to be explicit. Is that kind of the feeling of council at this point, that Bob make that one change and move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely okay with it.
Okay with that.
Then that's what we do, Bob. If you can make that one change, I think the way you said it sounds perfect. And thank you for all the other work, for the, not just this, but for the zoning change. And I know sitting down and pouring through some of the ordinance language and making changes is not, it's no small task. So thank you for doing all that hard work. Okay, that leaves us with one item on the agenda, which appeared on the CED agenda, and that's to accept the title of 3 express vans. And I think there was a tracking sheet, but not much else. I think, Mayor, I think this is something that you were going to discuss.
Yes, this is actually an accommodation for family and community services. This is a situation that's similar to the way they were able to get the Center of Hope. That was a public building before, and they can only donate to other public buildings or public entities. They had these used vans that are quite serviceable, and Mr. Frazone stopped in and asked if we would help them get it. We at no expense to us.
Right.
He was actually, when he talked to me, he was talking about using them with veterans. And I thought that would be a good idea. And I thought I would present that to council. This is a pass-through thing where we'll accept the
Donation.
donation of the vans, and then we will then donate them to family community services. I think we've got $1
We've done it in the past.
out of the building with that, but that's all this is.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good thing. I mean, it works. It's a good partnership to be able to do that and to be able to help nonprofits in our community. And especially, in times of need, they're always there to help us. We've used them in the past too for the same thing. So it's
Well,
a good
he's
partnership.
he's still holding title
Yeah.
to the engineer
Yes.
place, which he bought for $1. But he's holding that for us. So there is
Right.
reciprocity on these things.
Yep. Again, I have to apologize. I've been having technical problems with my battery, and I thought I was plugged in, and all of a sudden it started beeping like I was going to go dead on you guys. So that's why I've had to move around so much. I've been having technical problems here. So anyways, I have no problem, Rob, moving it forward and accepting the donation.
Tim?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
All right, we will move that forward. Thank you, Mayor. And that's it, except, well, do you have a management update for us?
Just by way of information, Dennis has been very busy with a number of potential things, and some that are actually happening. We had a ribbon cutting today for a new wellness center that's in the building previously housed Regional Planning Commission over on North Prospect Street. And they've already remodeled this thing, part of it, for the open house, and we wish them all the luck in the world in making a go of their business. But as Mr. Finney told you, we'll be talking to another group of people tomorrow that want to do some work with the old balloon factory that's behind the church. So, and we're getting other inquiries about properties, and there's people working with the people that bought Block 9 to try and find some tenants now for the inside of their place as they begin their journey on remodeling that and becoming a viable part of the downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds like a lot of good stuff, perhaps on the horizon. Good. Okay, then at 6:24, I will adjourn the planning committee meeting.
At 6:24, I will call the Community and Economic Development Committee to order. The first item on the agenda is the amendment for the Paris Linen Enterprise Zone Agreement. I believe this was due to a merger with Nova Health Services. Mayor, do you have more information on that?
Well, you pretty well stated it. There was a merger between the two, and they're using the other entity's name. What we're doing is transferring what was Paris's obligation on getting jobs in line to meet the needs of satisfying the enterprise agreement to give them the break on the real estate taxes to the company that is taking over. It's going to be the same people running the company out there. And this is something that we need to do to keep things in order with this part of economic development.
Kim, Amy, are you guys okay with moving this forward?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. The next item is the contract with Bricker and Eckler to help expand the CRA area.
Yeah, this is something that Dennis has recommended that we do that to help us, and we've had discussions before on this. We're not 100% comfortable with the establishment of the CRAs and where they should be done. This is a firm that provides people with expertise in this area to help you identify these things. It's not a set contract, it's an hourly contract when we call them in. I think Streetsboro also has employed this group to take a look at their situation and see which places would be appropriate to put the CRAs. And truly, the mechanics of putting them in place also is kind of a minefield that helps to have an expert set those things up. So in order to get that kind of thing going for us here in the city, the only one we have is the one for the theater. But we have other people we feel that can take advantage of this and would help us with the expansion of businesses in the downtown area.
The other thing that I wanted to add is the one gentleman from this group actually worked for the Ohio Development Services Agency creating the CRA program. So he's very knowledgeable and knows it inside and out.
Oh, I'm all for, and we've had discussions years ago about this. And the only thing that I would say is I really don't see why we can't have a CRA for the entire city. And we talked about that. In fact, we drew up a plan that had different levels, and it's a very complicated task. And I appreciate the idea of hiring a consultant to wade through the the minefield of putting this thing in place. But I really hope that there's a consideration that regular homeowners, not just businesses and not just businesses downtown, get to participate. And I don't see any downside in it, because one of the things, as we look forward, in planning, that we need to consider is how we can better serve the homeowners, residential homeowners in the city. And the more tools we can give them to improve their homes and maybe save a few bucks on their taxes, I think is worthwhile and certainly something to consider. So as we move forward with this, assuming we do engage this consultant, I hope we have a voice for the residents and not just the businesses.
Well, we want them to look at the whole city and tell us what the pitfalls are, no matter where they go. So we have no preconceived ideas about this.
Great.
It's open field.
Tim, Amy, do you guys have anything to say? Any questions?
No, I'm okay with us moving forward on that.
No, I'm fine with it. And looking at the contract, just don't fax him anything or receive a fax from him. It's $1 a page.
What is this charging for storage? $250 a month for 25 gigabytes or less? I mean, come on. Leave it up to the lawyers to nitpick and charge you for it.
Everything anymore is cost something. Oh.
No.
Can't we just give them a flash drive?
Well, I'll agree with you about the contract. And I am going to work with Frank on looking at this so that we keep our head above water.
Yeah. Wear a life jacket. Wait. But yeah, Rob, I know, I remember with us talking in length about homeowners when we talked about this before we even ended up, starting this. And yeah, I think it's something that we should, look at both. So
I think we definitely have to. I mean, as all of you guys know, the home improvements across the city have always been a passion of mine. I have said for many years that the CRA could help. What people would have to understand is, in order for it to benefit them, it would have to be a substantial improvement on the home. So
yeah, not maintenance, putting a roof.
No.
Right. It's a substantial amount that has to be.
But a lot of the houses need substantial amounts of improvement.
And that's kind of where I go back with saying, we're encouraging, home ownership, and, a lot of people are working hard, what area, a lot of people are buying, homes that might be more affordable to fix up. And, going back to what I said, the last thing we want to do is, put something in that area that could potentially, ruin all the hard work and money that they've put into their homes.
Well, I want to remind you that also that the county has a say in this.
And the school system too, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
School system votes if we go over the recommended tax break credit.
The school system has more to say about enterprise zones.
Mhm.
They do have an opportunity with this, but that's why we want this guy to show us how do we bring all these folks together and make this.
Good idea.
Okay, well then we'll move that forward. And I have a couple little notes just to kind of let council be aware. The CIC, along with the home improvement conversation we just had, the CIC would like to start presenting or sending letters to homeowners or home occupants that have done improvements to beautify the neighborhood, beautification of their property. And the reason that they want council involved is they would really like council to nominate or even approach these particular homes that they see in their areas that, wow, they've really made a difference. That looks so nice. Approach them, ask them if it would be okay to submit their name for a nomination to the CIC. I guess a good way to explain it would be sort of like the chamber does with the Raven Awards for the businesses, but this would be for the homes, the residential areas. And council would be involved because it would be up to council to nominate these different properties for the beautification letters and awards.
Refresh my memory, please, on CIC
It's the Community Investment
Corporation.
Yes.
Okay.
And last but definitely not least, because I'm not going to stop talking about it until we can get maybe Andrew to appoint a subcommittee, start the zoning reviews and updates.
And I think I've already said Rob and Cheryl, I think, are the two most important players, I think, on council to be a part of it. But talking with Finney, keeping it a small group. So look for that here coming out soon. I think I've already let some of that out in an email to Cheryl, Mr. Finney, and the mayor, I believe. But I think we'll make it official here soon. And Chelsea also, I don't know if she's getting the zoning code printed, so all of council will get a hardbound copy of that to review too. So you should have that.
Can we also get a copy of the current zoning map?
Was that a part of your printout or not? Okay. We'll say yes to get it done if it's not already printed.
We can print out zoning maps. What size do you want? Probably the most legible's 24 by 36.
Are you able to do it in like a high-res PDF?
That's
We make T-shirts out of them?
absolutely. Yeah,
Billboards.
absolutely. We can do that and send it digitally. That's the tricky part with the big maps.
Mm-hmm. They are tricky. I would say for council, the PDF would be perfect.
You can. All right. Well, I'll send something out and see if you guys like it. We can always change it. You can get to the zoning map through the county auditor's website also, which is a pretty clean map. We provided our zoning map to the auditor, to their GIS department that put it on their website.
Okay.
But no, we'll print it out and I'll send it to you. And it's best viewed through a PDF digitally than it is a hard copy because it's kind of cumbersome to carry around.
Right. Okay. Anything management updates for CED?
Not tonight. Thank you.
All right, with that, I will be adjourning CED at 6:36.
All right, at 6:36, I will call the Information Systems Committee meeting. We have one item on the agenda. This is something we've been talking about for quite a couple of months. We had another incident where someone's computer was hacked and was sending out emails over the weekend. I don't know. Andrew, did you hear anything more about that?
Nothing more about the incident or how it occurred, but that it's been taken care of.
Okay. So wanted to bring this up to you guys again. Obviously, as far as cybersecurity and training and those kind of things, that's never happened here. And with everyone having different levels of technology awareness, just kind of talking about maybe we need to put something in place, because this is just going to continue to happen. And these the scammers get smarter and smarter, and the emails that come out get better and better. So we are going to have to try to be proactive in this, or something's going to happen. And I even asked at work, my poor IT guy, he really hates that I'm on this committee now, because I ask him a million questions, but he didn't really think it was that unreasonable for the amount of people that we had. And this is just asking someone, hey, what do we pay for? And as far as cybersecurity and stuff goes, I mean, we could do it on a year-to-year basis and see how it goes. Maybe we need the package this year where we really get a lot of training and learning, and maybe we don't need that much next year because we don't have that much of a turnover in staff. But obviously something needs to be done, because between being hacked and asked for gift cards and all of those other things that are happening, sometimes they get smart and people fall for it. Andrew, did you have anything to add on that?
Can I just ask you then, can you run with this idea of the training and see if you can find any, whether it's online training or somebody to come in and speak, virtually? Yeah.
Where were we? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, where did we leave off with that? We had, remember, they came, they talked to us. We had talked about, what was it? We talked about having the online training where, did we not, where did we leave off with that when they came and talked with us?
Council said no.
Yeah, we did, because it was it seemed to be expensive. It was like $6 a person. I can certainly explore some other options to see. When I talked to our IT guy, he said that theirs was cheaper. However, where they got it from, they signed a 3-year contract. So of course theirs might be a little cheaper per person per month because they signed a 3-year contract. So it's going to depend on, those variants, but we got to do something before someone gives personal information away. Or
I think some of it we talked, from what I thought I remember, is that we were wondering if they, there was another option that we purchased, and we wondered, because of the, all the different services that we had with them, that we asked if we could get a little cheaper of a price. And did they ever come back with anything cheaper on that?
Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't we end up getting $4 a person?
Which isn't too bad.
It was substantially cheaper off the sticker price, if you will, that's on the website, because they, belong to, they have more subscriptions than, we would, obviously. So one of the things, we've already implemented the ATP. That was one of them. And then the training was the other piece. The simple one that I wanted to ask Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot, or Mayor, was the out of office email. So when somebody from outside the network is sending an email in, has that banner been turned on? Is that something that's been requested? Is it something that you can request? Because I understand it can be annoying, but it's a simple thing. Again, as long as you're receiving it from the .gov side, that could be, it could mitigate some of these issues from these phishing scams coming in. So that's my only question tonight, but I think I want to leave this as a placeholder for future meetings.
I mean, you're right. The ATP did get done last month. We did initiate that. So whatever this last email thing is, must have gotten through that level of security as well, which I'm not sure how that happened. I'd really like to find out some more details on how this one happened, because that's what we actually purchased that for.
Right. And I
as
think
far as the banner, though, you're right. I'll contact Katie right after this meeting and get that. That should easily be able to be turned back on. We had it on at one point. We had a lot of complaints about it. People didn't like it, so we turned it off. But I mean, we can easily turn that back on, and I think we probably need to now with all this been happening.
It definitely does not make your email look pretty because
No.
it doesn't, and it takes up a lot. However, it does help because it does draw your attention if you're getting something and it's not from the .gov.
And
Right.
I think tracking these scams or attacks, I think is a request that we should make of Quality IP so that we know throughout the year how many came in that we know of, and how many links did we click on, just something to track on that end. And then just to throw this out, because again, I feel like I'm just crying wolf, but the average cost for a municipality from 2013 to 2020 was $835,000 that it cost once you got in the network, that municipalities had to pay out to these cyber criminals. So
Yeah.
it's a substantial hit, and some were higher. You don't have to look too far from Atlanta to Baltimore to look at those examples. But again, that's why I want this placeholder here until we've got some things in place and training that's going on. I think it's an important issue for the city.
I think the online training, where people, you have like so many days to, go online and it shows whether you logged in or not and did that. I think it's probably the easiest thing to do. And it's actually, you do learn quite a bit from that because I've, in the past have to take that. But then again, it's going to have to come to where the managers have to make sure that, or department heads, have to make sure that their staff is complying with that. That's all.
All right, so I could definitely look into that and try to get some prices and see what else is out there as far as trainings go. Does anybody have anything else? Do we have a management update?
No, just over the weekend, Quality IP did do some work out at the rack. I guess they installed a new server as a backup server that's off-site. It does a duplication with that. They found something interesting. The phone to the elevator has never been active or hooked up. They did hook that up when they found it with that, but I was surprised I got a call to have them let in out there to do that work over the weekend. But they did accomplish it, and it was something we needed to do.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have anything else? I will adjourn our meeting at 6:44 p.m.
I believe that's everything for this evening. So, all right, we'll see you all next Monday.
Have a good night.
Thanks.